Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyillah wa ba'd. To proceed, just wanted to share some quick words of advice, inshallah, as a response to some messages that I've been receiving. This topic of racism and clarifying that Islam is against racism and to discriminate a person due to his color or his race. It's something clear. Many have spoken about this and brought awareness about this stance of Islam, alhamdulillah. But I just wanted to clarify something else as a message for the du'at, that from the things that we can be doing at this moment as well is taking this as an opportunity of what has happened recently, of the oppression to some of the people due to their color, what they're facing, that we can explain to them that Islam has solutions. And Islam, our noble messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has come to remove this evil characteristic that was found in pre-Islamic ignorance. Prior to Islam, Jahiliyyah is from the objectives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to remove this trait. And it is something that is ongoing, people are suffering from. In particular, in the United States of America, for many years now. And people have been suffering, different minorities being taken by oppression, especially in relation to the police brutality, has been foretold in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that there are people abusing their authority on a particular minority. And many of us have personal experiences with policemen that could attest to that. For this reason, people are globally coming out and bringing awareness to this affair. And when we clarify to the people that Islam has clarified the solution for this problem and shown how repugnant racism is many years ago, and people right now are looking for an answer for this affair, this is a good opportunity to give them da'wah. And I've seen, by the grace of Allah, some have taken this opportunity for those who are in a state of distress at this moment, looking for an answer for all these problems. Some of them have even accepted Islam when people explain to them what Islam stands about this affair. So this is a message for the du'at, as well to continue to bring awareness through the social media about that we do not acknowledge such oppression. We wouldn't be happy if it were to happen to ourselves, nor for others. And Islam is a religion of justice. And these systems out there, they are supposedly claiming justice, and many of what they've brought forward of laws, and we find that it is resulting to oppression to a large group of people in various places. And this is clear, and it's upon all of us to take the methods that is possible and wise to stand out upon these affairs, to show that we disapprove of it. Whether it happens here in North America or happens in the Middle East, all oppression is wrong. All oppression is wrong, but there is methods that are wise in taking. So there's a message that the imams of the masajid, the people who are leaders in their communities, to encourage those who they perhaps could have an impact with the words of advice, to guide them with wisdom in this sensitive time. And we know that in the Quran and Sunnah there is a solution for everything. Solution for our social affairs, for our matters that we are suffering from, in our communities. And we've found that in this particular issue, leaders of the black African American community have found a solution and a way out for many of these problems through Islam. In particular, Malcolm X, may Allah have mercy upon him. So to take some of what this approach and guiding the people with wisdom and encouraging them with the best of affair, and showing them that there is a way to bring some awareness to the oppression through its proper means, and to clarify that there are certain approach or methods that have been taken that are wrong and that are ruined this whole purpose of bringing awareness to oppression and giving a wrong image for the Muslims that are involved. And this is none other than the topic of protesting, riots, and so on. I wanted to speak about this quickly, keep it brief, inshallah, that this issue of protesting, it is a matter of, as if it's, our scholars almost unanimously agree that protesting should be avoided. And there are a couple of scholars, or a small number, or perhaps we would quote them, inshallah, who's been ascribed that it's said that they permit it with conditions, or that they said peaceful demonstrations are allowed. We're going to clarify some of what has been ascribed to them and also the conditions that have been said, just for whoever is saying that he's following these scholars, that they understand the content of his fatwa, and that they understand if what's happening now is applicable, so they can guide the people correctly with their words, inshallah. So this is just an advice, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us all. I wanted to start with Al-Allama Sheikh Abdurrahman bin Nasir al-Barrak, a well-known scholar who's been praised and is known for his knowledge, that he has spoken about this issue, about mudaharat. He gave a verdict to Bahrain at a particular time that for them, and he has clarified that peaceful demonstrations, if it brings about benefit, then it's allowed. That particular verdict was something that was specific to Bahrain at that specific timing. But really, we've seen that verdicts have come after Sheikh Abdurrahman al-Barrak, although some scholars have disagreed with him regarding his verdict pertaining to Bahrain. But later on, the Sheikh, with the affair of Egypt and the protesting that occurred there some years back, he quoted the opinion of the other scholars, that they're against it. And he left it with their opinion, and his approach was different from the affair of Bahrain. even though in that particular country it is permitted to and is legal to protest. So I wanted to read some words of his that came after, where he clarifies his stance in more details. He says, وَالْمُظَاهَرَاتُ نَوْعَانِ. Demonstrations are of two types. نوع فيه عنف وتخريب وهذا قد وقع في بعض البلاد. He says demonstrations or protestings of two types. A type that contains aggression and corruption. وهذا, he says, this has occurred in some lands, where is mischief, تخريب وإفساد وعدوان, transgression على أموال الناس, upon the wealth and the properties of the people, and the general wealth of the people of general. He says أيضا وهذه لا شك أنها حرام. He says with this, with no doubt, is haram. بكل المقاييس ولا أحد يقرها, with all reasonable form of analogy or understanding, and no one would acknowledge this. So if it's protesting of the kind that we may witness in some lands, where it leads to rioting and destroying people's properties and mischief and looting, there is no one, we're not speaking of a scholar, even let alone a scholar agreeing with it, we know that there's no one, and with a correct mind state, would justify this in Islam and say this is allowed. والثاني ما يسمونه بالمظاهرة السلمية. The second type is what they refer to as peaceful demonstrations or peaceful protesting. He says يعني كلام بدون أفعال, speech without any actions. فيتكلمون بمطلوبهم ومقصودهم, that they speak of their demands or what their objectives behind this. ويتجمعون على هذا, and they gather upon this. وينادون ويرفعون الأصوات فيها, and they call out and they raise their voices concerning what they're demanding. أيضا لغط وصياح, where they yell and raise their voices out loud. ويختلط فيها أنواع من الناس, where there becomes a mixture of a number of people within this crowd during this time. بما في ذلك النساء, where it even occurs women take part of this. فيحصل اختلاط بين الرجال والنساء فيها, so it occurs free mixing between men and women in this affair. So he says وهذا نوع من المظاهرات هي التي قلنا إنها مأذون فيها في أنظمة أكثر البلاد. He says this type of protesting, the peaceful one, this is what we've said, that is legal, and many of the systems, or in many countries found in their systems. He says ومع ذلك لا تسلم من بعض من يدخل فيها. He says with this, in this of it being like this, it is not safe of people entering within them, لأنه يدخل فيها من لا يلتزم بشرطها, because people who would enter in these crowds who will not actually agree to it being a peaceful demonstration, and they take it out of being a peaceful demonstration. وهي التي ليست محصورة في أعيان معينين ولو كان كذلك فقد يدخل معهم من ليس منهم. So he basically says that it's not restricted, and it's really hard to restrict the crowd of who enters and who protests along with you. So people who are not of this agenda to make a peaceful demonstration will perhaps join them. So he clarifies that this second one, it contains this affair of people taking it out from what it was originally upon. And he as well, Sheikh al-Barrak, he was asked about the issue of protesting in another video of his or another audio, where he clarifies another thing that is not allowed during protesting. And I'll play the audio inshallah.
عما حصل يعني في مصر وما حكم المظاهرات وخروج النساء في المظاهرات. أما خروج النساء في المظاهرات هذا لا شك أنه غلط جهل.
So the Sheikh, as you heard, he was asked about protesting that happens in some of the lands where women come out and protest as well. So he says, as for women coming out and protesting, this is something that is wrong and it's based upon ignorance. So the Shaykh, for those who perhaps may misunderstood his verdict, he does not intend for du'at to encourage women to go out or to make a public announcement encouraging all to go out and protest for their rights, where it leads to this affair where people encourage women to go out and protest. This is incorrect. This is not what he has intended. And another affair that the Sheikh al-Barrak, he has clarified that many of the times people say they're doing peaceful demonstrations, and it leads to that which is chaotic. It leads to that which is chaotic. And for that reason, in other verdicts of Sheikh al-Barrak, he cites the other opinion that it's not allowed and if something should be avoided because of it's been made clear the harm. And it's in reality in this day and age, there's nothing to really show that there will be peaceful demonstrations and certainty. And great harm has come out from those who have said so, who started these campaigns and these demonstrations upon that affair have brought more harm than good. And as well as Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Abbad, he has a long article where he addresses this doubt about there being such thing of peaceful demonstrations where people come out, and he clarifies in a lengthy manner that there's no such thing of this affair, and it's just a title that people give to justify their actions at the very beginning, and it's their actions later on disagree with what they're stating on their tongue. So to come with these public announcements and just with these vague words and say to the people peaceful demonstrations without clarifying the conditions. For really, if you were to clarify these conditions to them, you would realize that it's not really applicable, especially in these lands of the Western countries, to apply these verdicts of these scholars. And it's very important that before we take a specific fatwa for a specific land and apply it to another land, is that we consult. I've reached out to the Sheikh al-Barrak, to his son, and to some of his students about some of them maybe using his verdict concerning what's happening in North America for protesting of racism against people of color or minorities. And this is something that we know that the Sheikh is not in agreement of, especially with all the confusion of people that are joining under this name, under peaceful protesting, and more harm is coming out. And we've even seen Muslims on video, their name being tarnished of certain things that has been ascribed to them. That is wrong because of all of this statement. As well, I want to clarify another thing before I end, inshallah, with this clip, is the stance of Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, because he made an exception for the lands of disbelief in some of his fatwas with certain conditions, and he said certain wordings that I wanted to play for the people, inshallah.
فلا نراها إطلاقا. ربما يقال لو كنا في بلاد كافرة والمسلمون مغمورون في هذه البلاد ولم ترفع الدولة بهم رأسا إلا بالمظاهرة، فهذه قد يقال إن ذلك لا بأس به بشرط أن لا يحدث شيء محرم.
So as you heard, Sheikh Muhammad Salih Uthaymin, after clarifying that he doesn't see protesting and active demonstrations, and he says maybe it could be said that it's allowed in a country where the people perhaps have no other way to attain their rights except to protesting in a non-Muslim land. He says maybe it can be said there, and then he said with the condition that it doesn't have anything that occurs therein of haram, any act of unlawful acts. And some of the things that he's given example of an unlawful act, we'll play inshallah.
ابتلينا في بلادنا بمن يرى بجواز المظاهرات في إنكار المنكر، فإذا رأوا منكرا معين تجمعوا وتسووا مظاهرة ويحتجون أن ولي الأمر يسمح لهم بمثل هذه الأمور.
So a questioner says that we've been trialed, and that in some lands that people, they do protesting to remove an evil, and they use the fact that the Wali al-Amr, the ruler or the government, has legalized protesting and has allowed it. So he starts off saying, firstly, mudaharat, it doesn't bring about benefit. It leads to that which is of disorder and chaos.
والمظاهرات تمر هذه الأفواج وربما تمر على الدكاكين وعلى الأشياء التي تسرق.
And he mentions that sometimes it can lead to looting and harming other people's properties.
وربما يكون فيها اختلاط.
And he says that perhaps it may include free mixing.
وربما يكون فيها اختلاط بين الشباب المرجان والكهل، وربما يكون فيها نساء أحيانا فهي منكر ولا خير.
So he clarifies that it may contain at times free mixing of men and women, and we've seen that even other affairs that the Muslims that get involved, some of them perhaps fall short in the timings of the prayers. They get so distracted with the long hours of demonstration, they miss out or they become late from their salat. So there's many other affairs that the Shaykh is against, and he put the condition that there's nothing unlawful that occurs. And this was a verdict of the Shaykh, but later we find another verdict that clarifies that the Shaykh, he says, I'll read it inshallah, and the English inshallah, he says, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and may Allah shower and peace and blessings upon our leader Muhammad and upon his family, followers, and whosoever follows them until the day of recompense to proceed. He says, indeed, demonstrations are a newly invented matter that were not known at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, nor the Khulafa al-Rashideen, or the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them. In addition to this, they contain chaos, and it leads the people to something prohibited. When doing so, and he gives the example of glasses being broken, doors, and other than this, also the mixing of men and women, the young and old. Other than this, from the evils they present, and we even found in some of these protesting, young children, even like a baby going missing or a young child going missing in the midst of this crowd. It was a mixture of young and old. This is what he intends sometimes. We find harm coming about by that. As for putting pressure upon the government, if they are Muslim, then an admonition from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger ﷺ is sufficient, he says, as a Muslim government. This is the best thing that can be put forward to the Muslim. And if the government is non-Muslim, they do not care about these demonstrations, even though they may superficially agree to them, meaning display something outwardly, but withholding an inward ill feeling. For these reasons, we consider demonstrations an evil. He even says regarding a non-Muslim government. And he goes, as for the statement that they are peaceful demonstrations, they may begin to be peaceful at the beginning, but then they gradually become chaotic. And he goes, advise the youth to follow the way of those who have preceded, of the Salaf, for indeed Allah has praised the Muhajirun and the Ansar and those who follow them in goodness. So this is from Majallat al-Furqan al-Kuwaiti, page 79. Other reference as well. So this is the stance of Shaykh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen. And when we quote either Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Barrak or Shaykh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen, or quote these scholars about this particular affair, it's very important that we quote them accurately. And we mention their specific guidelines. So no one gets actually confused that these scholars are saying what's happening and most of these affairs of protesting is what they are permitting. As well, a question was posed to Sheikh Ali Tuwaijiri recently. It was the question I'll read. We are in America and there are protests occurring. A black American man was killed by the police without any due right, but rather due to racism. The people have established protests seeking justice and change from the government. What is the ruling on the Muslims who are residing there to take place in these protests? Is it prohibited by way of the legislation? Is it upon the Muslims to stay away from these protests and to stick to their homes? We are in need of a clarification from the people of knowledge. May Allah bless you. So he answers. I will play his audio, inshallah.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. لا تجوز المظاهرات، لا تجوز ولا يجوز للمسلم أن يقيمها ولا أن يشارك فيها، لكن له أن يطالب بحقوقه بالطرق المعروفة. أما المظاهرات فلا.
So he begins his answer saying, protesting is not permissible, and it's not permissible for a Muslim to establish nor take part in it. However, it is permissible for him to seek his rights through the known routes. That a person could find different means of found in the land that he lives to bring out these complaints about the police brutality and find different methods of bringing out to highlight these affairs on the media. So pressure could be placed on these individuals, and by the blessing of Allah, alhamdulillah, through the means of social media, even other law enforcements and lawyers are attesting and agreeing with the public about the oppression out there. So there's more pressure when people are highlighting it and bringing awareness to it and showing their disapproval collectively through whatever public affair that they can do, especially online, or if they can author or they can complain to a specific leader or figure in a community to address to those who can handle the matter further. And we're going to read further what he says.
المظاهرات شر. المظاهرات شر يضغط على الدولة بالكثرة، وقد يكون العمل الذي قامت به الدولة منكر مثل هذا، لكن غدا يأتيك مظاهرات يقول أوقفوا الإسلام، وغير المسلمين أكثر. كل من مظاهرات امنعوا المساجد، افعلوا كذا. هي سلاح ذو حدين.
So the Shaykh, he says, as for protesting, then no. Protesting is evil, since it is a means of putting pressure on the government by way of having a lot of people. It could be that the act that the government has committed is evil, like this one, the killing of George Floyd. But tomorrow there will be protests to stop Islam, while it should be known that the disbelievers are more in number. They will say, establish protests, prevent people from the masajid, do such and such. It is a sword which has two sharp ends to it.
لكن الشريعة جاءت بإحقاق الحق والدعوة إليه وإظهار الخير وكبت الشر كائنا ما كان. وقد نص العلماء على أنه لا يجوز المشاركة في المظاهرات الشيخ ابن باز والشيخ ابن عثيمين والشيخ الألباني والشيخ الفوزان وغيرهم من أهل العلم.
So he says the legislation has come with giving those of due right their right by way of calling to it and making good apparent and repelling evil, wherever it may be. Scholars have mentioned that it is not permissible to take part in protests, the likes of Sheikh Ibn Baz, Al-Uthaymeen, Sheikh Albani, Sheikh Al-Fawzan, and other than them, they've even listed over 50 scholars from the people of knowledge. And this is something I added, that they've listed perhaps a great number. It's perhaps, if you were to find someone say that there is such thing of a peaceful demonstration or it doesn't lead to something chaotic, that's probably a rare opinion that is just a zilla of a alim, maybe an error that a particular scholar made. It's not upon us to follow them in their error, but follow what is correct in a reality. Really, this is a door, as Sheikh Muhammad Salih Al-Uthaymeen says, to disorder and to a greater harm. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve the people from the oppressions that are out there worldwide and from what the people have been suffering from for years, and to make it a way out for all of this affair that is occurring. And we end with this: Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.